represent almost 9,000 people now. It's a massive endeavor, right? And really the people I bring in people I enjoy being with, you know, I enjoy working with. Like I love working with Brian Panish. I love John Morgan out of Florida. And he's got John Morgan had the technological capabilities. You know, he's got a massive organization and a massive operation and the IT department to go with it. And so he gave us the organizational abilities into handling that many clients. You know, and you're not going to find a better trial lawyer than Brian. And we find when we try cases together that there's a gestalt that develops. It's kind of interesting how that is, because normally when he's not there, I'm the hatchet, you know, and I'll have somebody else soften the approach. Bobby Kennedy is the premier guy for pollution. I mean, to stop pollution. And he's an environmental lawyer that really started environmental lawyers. You know, he single-handedly cleaned up more of America's water than any lawyer alive. So this was kind of a natural for him. We had already developed a lot of experience in oil pollution, oil well pollution, because of, you know, what the oil companies did to the the aquifers in Kern County and San Joaquin Valley, which is America's breadbasket. There used to be 26 pristine aquifers. There's now 6. I mean, they polluted 22 of them. I mean,
wow.
And you know, most of the regulatory agencies are captive agencies. You know, they do what the industry tells them to do, and we certainly saw that in Porter Ranch. I mean, we have children who have died because of what the Southern California Gas Company did. And you know, the more we learn and discover, the more appalling it becomes. Yeah, an example is, so you have the largest blowout in the history of the world that occurs in this gas well blowout. Never before has the world seen something like this. And it's because in nature, such a situation doesn't exist. You know, they have these incredibly huge compressors, turbine compressors, that bring the gas in, pump it into the formation that used to be an oil formation, not a gas well formation. And they pump it in at an incredibly high pressure. And so when it blew, of course, there'd never been gas and oil well blowout like that, because in nature, such pressures don't exist, you know. And on top of that, for 30 years, they had been using this as a toxic waste dump also. And what I mean by that is, so you bring all this gas in from all over the country, put it in at high pressure. Well, it comes in dirty, meaning benzene, toluene, xylene, all these chemicals that kill you. And when they ship it out to sell it to customers, they scrub it, they clean it, they run it through this whole huge facility to do that. So I asked them in Discovery, I said, so what do you do with that stuff that comes out of the gas, you know, when you clean it? Oh, we put it back in the hole. I mean, well, think about that for a second. 30 years. Oh. What we also discovered is, you know, they 10 years before the blowout, they went to the PUC and said, we need money to fix these wells. There's hundreds of these wells that are leaking, and it's just a matter of time before one's going to blow. And they didn't get what they wanted. So what they did then is they started destroying documents. They had a new retention policy, you know, document retention policy. And when this blowout happens, to this day, they're saying to the PUC is, we cannot tell you what chemicals came out of that well. Well, they destroyed all the documents that would say what was in there before 2015. You know, we have a criminal restitution hearing coming up. You know, they put all these testing things, you know, in the community 8 days after the blowout started. Well, the amount of gas coming out of that hole after 8 days was significantly less to begin with. And they were very careful for what they tested for. You know, they didn't want to test for too many things, which is ludicrous to begin with, because understand how testing works. You take an air sample graph, and then the gas chromatograph tells you what's in it. And you just tell the lab what you want to know. But it tests for everything. It doesn't, you see what I mean? So they were very careful what they asked the lab for. And they were very careful where they put these canisters to test the air. Everything was designed to minimize the impact on the community. Well, finally, you know, LA Unified School District, one of the schools called the gas company, and they said, so will you give us something to test the air? Will you come test the schools? And they said, your nose is the best. Right, school district, they did their own testing. The next day they closed the schools. The very next day. And in fact, just the benzene alone was 100 to 200 times the amount that is known by the federal government to cause cancer, especially leukemia. We represent some of those people with leukemia now, whose children have leukemia. You know, these people should be in jail for homicide, and instead they pled to a misdemeanor because they knew it. I was going to say, so the day the blowout happened, you know, that it's actually, we think it'd been going on for weeks, but the day it got really bad, one of the people called the gas company and said, even my cats are throwing up. You know, my girlfriend and I, we're sick, we're throwing up. It smells terrible. What's happening? And they said, natural gas is not, they had the script already prepared. You know, he was the first person to call, to our knowledge, complaining, and they already had the script. Gas, that is just the odorant that's in the gas, and sometimes it'll cause people to have symptoms. Bullshit. What was causing them to be sick was hydrogen sulfide, because their own testing, they couldn't find any odorant in that gas. Their own testing. They did thousands and thousands of tests. Not one test shows the odorant in it. But yet they told people that it was the smell that was just causing essentially a psychological reaction. And people died. I mean, some of these people were old with congestive heart failure, conditions, with all kinds of problems. And there isn't any doubt they died. This was a homicide because they knew it was going to happen. They told the government it was going to happen. And when it did happen, they lied to people about what was happening. It'll be interesting to see how it ultimately resolves, but that company should be bankrupt and the executives should be in prison. And they ought to thank God I'm not king, because that's exactly where they would be. District Attorney's Office in Southern California Gas deliberately, willfully, and openly attempted to create a plea arrangement where they did not have to pay the residents, the actual victims of this, restitution. And so they cut out the charges and just went with the failure to report. And there was an assumption that they actually reported it 3 days later. They never reported what they were supposed to report. They were supposed to report the release of whatever hazardous substances they were pouring into the environment. Instead, they reported a gas leak that was non-toxic. How is that reporting anything? But the appellate court grabbed onto that for some reason, thinking that there was an actual compliance 3 days later. There was not. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The bulk of far more gas came out the first 3 days than came out the rest of the blowout, because they didn't turn the compressors off. I mean, think about that. It took them a while to figure out, let's turn the compressor off. So the pressures were much higher during the initial part of the blowout. And now what they're left with is they phonied up the testing. So they're saying there was no toxic material in the gas except for 1 or 2 days, right? But they never started any testing until 8 days later. And when we went in and when the health department tested the homes, there were clearly all these carcinogens that could only have gotten there from the blowout. Must have happened in the first 3 days, don't you think? I mean, you know, they're kind of hoisted on their own petard in that regard. And they should be. I mean, the law said, and it all happened after that Bhopal in India. Remember when thousands of people died with the Union Carbide plant? Mm-hmm. So the US government mandated all the states to have these laws that require instant reporting so that the people in the area are instantly notified as without any delay whatsoever. That's the reason for the law. That's what the law they violated and continue to violate. I mean, they continue to say it's natural gas, non-toxic. And I had the joy of taking some of their experts' depositions. And so I asked them, I go, well, was this a well blowout or was it a natural gas leak? Well, clearly it was a well blowout, which is an uncontrolled release of an oil and gas well. And what they were reporting was like a pipeline leak downstream from the cleaning process. And they still try to say that. Although, it takes 3 questions for that to fall apart on every witness that they use. One of the things they did is, I mean, for lawyers that are going to get involved with the oil industry and the natural gas industry, you have to be prepared that there are no rules these people will follow. They are absolutely unscrupulous. I mean, look no further than Exxon, whose own reports 50 years ago said climate change is caused by what we're doing. Let's keep it a secret and let's get ready to drill when the ice melts on the North Pole. I mean, that's the essence of what all of their memos show. They were willing to destroy the planet for profits. So when you start with that assumption, then you see it's not surprising what they did in this case. They hire this woman who's an osteopath. They tell everybody, including the regulatory agencies, that she's board certified in environmental medicine. She was not. And she then meets with the victims and the residents of the Porter Ranch area, portrays herself as a doctor who's there to help them, gathers information all the time working with the defense lawyers. These people are represented by lawyers. Now the kicker, I mean, you wait for it, you're waiting for it. She's a lawyer. She hasn't practiced medicine for 20 years. And she freely admitted that she was reporting to the defense lawyers what she learned in these meetings. I've never seen anything this scandalous. Now, I'm doing the reply now to our motion to strike their defenses to the medical claims. I don't know what the judge is going to do with it. That's a very difficult decision for her to make. But I don't know of a lawyer out there who's ever heard of conduct this disreputable. But it's the oil industry. We assume all of our phones are tapped. We assume they look at everything I look at on the computer. There's nothing they won't do. Well, interestingly enough, I would like to say we got it because we got 30 years reputations of getting great results for our clients, which is true. That is absolutely true. But it really was a marketing campaign. You got to get in there early. You got to do town hall meetings. You got to, there's competition for it. And, and then you got to be prepared to invest $20 million. I mean, I don't know how many millions we've invested, but it's enormous. Or you bring people in that can help you with that. And that's another reason, the 4 of us came together. There's, Bobby Kennedy, John Mogan, Brian Panish, myself, is you're also spreading the risk. But, the problem that we also have with Porter Ranch, which is very uncommon, is say we go to trial. And if Brian and I try the first few cases, I don't have any doubt what's going to happen. You know, they were, I mean, just the fear of cancer, that's a claim in California. These people have real fears of cancer. What is that worth for a lifetime? Southern California Gas lets this go to verdict. There won't be a Southern California Gas when it's over. They don't have enough money. And they're an $8 billion company. We're losing half the gas they put into it every year. Half of it.
Half. That's mind-boggling.
You know what that's done to our environment?
Yeah, but you know what they're going to say now? Well, since the ice caps are melting, there's that much CO2 going in the atmosphere at alarming rates. So therefore, comparing us to the climate crisis, we're minor.
They did say that. You know, they'll do the thing, well, look how much happens in a volcano. You know, the point of the matter is our children, our grandchildren do not have a future if we don't do something quickly. And the reason I say something, because nobody knows what that is.
Yeah.
But until we have the will to fix it, we're not going to find out either.